river curved quietly through the open land, wide and slow, carrying the last light of the evening like molten gold across its surface. She stepped into the water believing, with complete certainty, that she was alone. Miles of open plains surrounded her, broken only by distant hills and the soft whisper of grass bending in the wind. This place felt forgotten by the world, and that was exactly why she had chosen it. The cool water wrapped around her ankles, then her knees, washing away the dust of travel and the tension that had lived in her body for far too long. She loosened her grip on herself, breathing more freely with every step deeper into the river. She didn't hear the horse. From the ridge above the bank, the cowboy had slowed his ride, his attention drawn by movement where none should have been. He reined in, squinting against the low sun, and that was when he saw her, standing in the river, unaware, unguarded, framed by light and water. Instinct told him to turn away immediately. He had no right to be there, yet surprise held him still for a heartbeat too long, a moment stretched thin by silence. The river shifted, ripples brushing against her skin, and something deeper than sound warned her. She looked up. Her breath vanished. There he was, still watching, his figure dark against the sky. Shock froze her in place, heart slamming hard enough to echo in her ears. The safety she had felt shattered instantly, replaced by vulnerability so sharp it burned. For a second neither of them moved, caught in the raw truth of being seen. The cowboy reacted first. He lifted his hands slowly, as if approaching a frightened animal, and stepped back toward his horse. "I didn't mean to be here," he said, his voice low and steady. "I'll turn around." But the moment couldn't be undone. Her pulse raced as she moved toward the bank, every step heavy with awareness. She wrapped herself quickly, eyes never leaving him, trying to read intent in his posture, his distance, his restraint. He looked uncomfortable, almost guilty, as though he understood the weight of what had just happened. The sun slipped lower, shadows stretching long between them. Neither spoke again, yet something had already passed, unspoken, irreversible, in that brief collision of chance and silence. Two strangers had crossed paths, and the land itself seemed to hold its breath, knowing this encounter was not as simple as it appeared. She stood on the riverbank, the shawl pulled tightly around her shoulders, water still clinging to her skin as the shock slowly gave way to anger. "You shouldn't have been watching," she said, her voice sharper than she intended, shaped by fear more than accusation. The open land no longer felt empty. Every sound seemed louder now, the rustle of grass, the snort of the horse, the steady rhythm of her own heartbeat. The cowboy stopped where he was, several careful steps away, as if distance itself were a promise. "I wasn't looking for anyone," he replied. Saw movement and froze. "That's on me." His eyes stayed lifted, fixed on the horizon instead of her, a small gesture that mattered more than words. "I can leave. Won't take but a minute." She hesitated. Part of her wanted him gone immediately, erased from the moment entirely. Yet another part, the one that had survived by reading people quickly, noticed his restraint. He wasn't defensive. He wasn't advancing. He was waiting. "Which way are you headed?" she asked, surprising herself. He glanced back, pointing toward the west. "Home, or what passes for it." There was a tired honesty in his voice that softened. Something inside her. She had heard too many lies lately to miss the sound of truth. The wind picked up, carrying the scent of water and dust between them. She tightened the shawl and stepped farther from the river, grounding herself. This land, is it safe? The question slipped out before she could stop it, revealing more than she planned. He considered her carefully now, still respectful, but attentive. "Depends on where you're going," he said. "Some parts don't forgive mistakes, especially at night." Silence settled again, heavier but different from before. Not shock now, choice. She told him only what she had to, that she was moving north, that she didn't plan to stop soon, that she trusted the open more than towns. He didn't press for details, and that restraint earned him another measure of trust. The sun dipped lower, painting the river in copper and shadow. He offered directions, nothing more, nothing less. When he finally turned toward his horse, she realized she didn't want the moment to end the way it had begun, abrupt and unfinished. "Wait," she said quietly. He paused. For the first time, curiosity outweighed fear, and she wondered whether this unexpected crossing was a warning or the beginning of something neither of them had planned, but both could feel settling into the space between their words. Night arrived without ceremony, folding itself over the land until the plains became a wide, breathing darkness. A small fire burned a careful distance from the river, its light trembling against the cool air. She sat with her knees drawn close, the warmth easing the chill left behind by the water and by everything that had followed since. The cowboy tended the fire in silence, movements unhurried, respectful, as if he understood that presence itself could be loud. They spoke only when words felt necessary. She shared fragments, where she had come from, not why, how long she had been traveling, not what chased her forward. He listened without interruption, eyes on the flames, never pushing, never claiming. In return, he offered pieces of his own life, a ranch that barely held together, long rides that felt more like thinking than traveling, a familiarity with solitude that matched her own. The fire popped softly, sending sparks into the dark. Somewhere beyond the light, the river moved steadily, indifferent to the tension and comfort it had both created. She found herself watching his face when the flames shifted, noticing the wear in his expression, the patience carved by years of open land and quiet choices. He wasn't the kind of man who rushed moments. That more than anything made her feel safe. "I can ride with you until the next crossing," he said at last. Careful with the offer. "Doesn't have to mean more than that." She looked toward the black horizon, measuring distance, risk, and the unfamiliar pull of trust. Traveling alone had kept her alive, but it had also kept her guarded, always listening for footsteps that never came. Sharing the road, even briefly, felt like stepping onto uncertain ground. The river whispered behind them, reminding her how quickly certainty could disappear. Yet here she was, unafraid in a way she hadn't expected, sitting across from a man who had seen her at her most vulnerable and had chosen restraint instead of advantage. "Just until the crossing," she said, finally meeting his eyes. He nodded, a quiet agreement sealed without touch. They slept on opposite sides of the fire, the space between them unbroken, yet charged with something unspoken. As the flames burned low, both lay awake longer than they meant to, aware that some meetings don't need intention to matter. They happen, and in happening they change the road ahead. Morning came softly, pale light stretching across the plains, as if the night had never held its breath. The fire had burned down to warm ash, and the air carried that quiet stillness that exists just before the world fully wakes. She stirred first, sitting up slowly, listening. The cowboy was already awake, crouched near his horse, checking the saddle with calm efficiency. He didn't look toward her right away, giving her the space to rise on her own terms. They shared the morning without ceremony. A simple meal, a few exchanged glances. Nothing rushed. The river behind them reflected the sky in muted silver now, no longer charged with surprise, just a witness to what had already passed. When she stood, ready to move on, he waited for her to speak first. They rode out together as agreed, keeping a respectful distance between their horses. The land unfolded wide and open, grass bending under the breeze, the horizon stretching endlessly ahead. Conversation came and went naturally, sometimes a few words, sometimes none at all. The silence no longer felt sharp. It felt companionable. As the sun climbed higher, she felt something unfamiliar settle in her chest. Not hope exactly, but relief. For once, she wasn't watching her back every second. She wasn't calculating exits. The road felt steadier with another presence beside her, even if it was only temporary. By midday, the crossing came into view, a narrow bend where the land split and paths led in different directions. He slowed his horse first, already understanding what this place meant. She did the same, stopping just short of where their agreement would end. "This is me," she said, dismounting. The words felt heavier than she expected. He nodded, respectful as ever. "From here, the trail's clearer. Less trouble." She studied his face, memorizing it in the daylight, the lines shaped by sun and patience, the eyes that had seen her without taking from her. She realized then that what mattered wasn't how they met, but how he had chosen to behave after. Thank you, she said quietly. Not just for the escort, but for everything unsaid. He tipped his hat, a small smile touching his mouth. Take care of yourself. She watched as he turned his horse back toward the open land, his figure slowly blending into the distance. When she finally took her own path forward, she carried more than supplies and direction. She carried the certainty that sometimes the unexpected doesn't arrive to harm you, but to remind you that trust, once earned, can be as powerful as the journey itself.